Hello, welcome to the Polymath podcast. I'm excited to have Michael Morgan back on the show. We're going to talk about fasting today as a spiritual practice. And Michael has written books about fasting, right? What is the name of your book on fasting? And why did you write it? And why should we read it?
There's a couple, to be honest, but yeah, one of them is Wisdom and Might. I got another one called Light and Hope.
They're all about fasting, every single one.
I mean, even Covenant and Love talks about fasting, so I technically have 3 books that are in depth mention fasting and talk about it. And it's a life changer, game changer for sure. We live in a super heavily medicated, super heavily fortified consumer society where food is perceived as a solution, food is perceived as a medicine, food is perceived as a sedative, food is perceived as a replacement for intimacy. Food is a lot of things, which is not to say that food is all evil, or that the answer is to become some type of guru that never eats or drinks or any of that. There are people out there in the world who have accomplished these things. You can definitely find information about them online or in the concordias and concordances of ancient mythical traditions and stuff. But we live in LA. I don't know where you all live, but going for 30 days, 40 days with no food, no water, or no food, it's pretty high standard for spiritual practice. It's been done in different traditions. 40 days with no food, it's not really realistic. So what is realistic? And basically, the whole benefit of this is it's not about the food. You begin to really seriously realize this is not about the food. It's about how I think when I'm hungry, how I react to things, what I use to seek comfort, what I use to seek answers to my problems. It's not about the food. And it's not even about whether you eat or do not eat. It's the mindset in which you do those things. So these are just a few things that I've picked up along the way. I think that there's a lot of people who are looking for spiritual practices and spiritual solutions to all sorts of issues in their lives, and fasting is almost universally a way to enter into that threshold of spiritual solutions. And every faith tradition, every spiritual tradition on the planet will corroborate what I just said. So this is not like my special system. I'm not trying to sell you my book and give you my A to Z and like a $80 a day fasting juice system or anything like that. I'm really not. But I just know that we all benefit from that if we're on a spiritual journey.
Okay. Yeah, I'm someone that I've fasted before, and I start to feel a lot better when I do. It does feel like one form of purity and sobriety and recovery really does have to do with what we're putting in our body. Are we eating clean? Are we eating real, alive food? Are we eating fresh food? What's the vibration of the food? Is it a high vibration? Is it giving life? Is it full of sun and sunlight? And is this an extension of spirituality? Can food even heal the body if there's a sickness and an imbalance in the body? And are people making food into an idol? which is kind of what you were alluding to. Like, what are your motives for eating? Are you stuffing your feelings? Are you numbing out? Like, are you trying to comfort yourself? Like, are you trying to practice self-care? What are you buying and why? Like, is it because you watched a TV commercial? Like, and is the food, like, most people know what's healthy and what's not to some degree. And yet, I know sometimes for me, I can't resist bad food. Even if I know it's bad, I'll just eat it. And so what I've been, one of the reasons I really wanted to create this episode with you is because I do think that when you have an intention, like, okay, like me, I like to fast from flour and sugar. I've done it before. Like, I'll eat meat. He doesn't eat any meat. He's a vegetarian, but I'll eat meat.
Vegan.
Vegan.
There's a difference.
Yeah, vegan. Total difference. And I knew that. I just,
it's okay. Don't be ashamed. Don't be ashamed of me. Veganism.
I'm not ever, like, but yeah. So, and I have been a vegan for like 2-3 months of my life, and I did feel pretty good, and I was thinking really clearly, but I'm not trying to be a vegan. I'm just trying to,
and I don't judge that,
fast from flour and sugar.
And I think part of this conversation and the healthiness of this conversation is, this is not a judgmental conversation. I'm not judging you for like how you. I've healed myself of all that judgment. Like, there's so many vegans, they make veganism look really bad. So real quick, I'll apologize on behalf of all vegans if you ever felt like you were being judged, or a vegan person is making themselves superior to you in any way, shape, or form. That's terrible. I mean, it's like we actually see those things happen all the time in spiritual practice, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you have people who are like, oh, my spiritual practice makes me superior to you. It's not just what they eat or don't eat. It's, well, I did this type of Bikram yoga this many times a week, so and then they take on this air of superiority, which is really just like an elitist class hierarchical thing, which all great spiritual practitioners were in a way trying to break down. So please don't like let your eating habits or your concept of fasting do that to you. I've fallen into that trap at times. I think I've matured over years and years of commitment to this practice. I'm still not perfect all the time, but yeah, I think we all have our own engines, like literally in us. We all have our own oil, so to speak, our own fuel. Some of us are like 87, 89, 91. Some of us are electrical cars or whatever, right? Some of us are methane or like different types of fuel. And so we're all just different in that way. And you should never allow anyone else to tell you what your spiritual practice is. What I was going to say earlier is that fasting and spiritual practice across the spectrum is a great way for you to come to a deeper knowledge of yourself and a deeper knowledge of who your creator is. And if you're really, really intrigued and interested in the good things that will come from those two relationships, the relationship with the creator and the relationship with yourself, you're only going to have good things happen. So that's the disclaimer around vegan elitism. But there's a difference between eating eggs and eating dairy, and then not eating eggs and eating dairy. You just have to find ways to create alternatives and supplements. And like, what did you say the other day? Something about like, look at how you've helped all these fast food restaurants have vegan food or something. What did you say? You were like referring to this evolution or progress in the world around me, like I had something to do with it. Is that what you're referring to? That I have some spiritual power to make Burger King and like Carl's Jr. have Impossible?
Well, I mean, I think that if you want to get something done, it's like you have to do it yourself. So I know for most of your life you've avoided meat for the most part. And it was a lot harder years ago. And then in the last several years, we've seen all the fast food restaurants come up with vegetarian and even vegan options. These are fast food restaurants. So these are really mainstream restaurants. So you've been able to align with a reality where there are vegan options.
Well, and I
because
guess
you stayed strong, it was supply and demand. There was enough of a demand from you and people like you, and you paved the way for more and more people to be vegan, and now it's easier to be vegan.
You're making me sound really like a champion of human progress. That's great. So let me ask you a question. Do you think people can get drunk off food? You mentioned sobriety earlier, which I thought was interesting. So do you think people can get drunk off food?
Definitely. I think...
Have you seen it?
It's like you can get intoxicated off food. Are you going to crash a car? No.
Maybe. But isn't it illegal to drive a car while you're eating anyway?
Probably. But if you're, granted that you're not like eating while you're driving, but it's not like, I mean, first of all, food impacts different people different ways, but it like, I know that, I have been meditating twice a day, writing twice a day, and when I do this practice, I don't feel like food has so much power over me, because when I meditate, I'm tuning into source energy, I'm tuning into God, and I feel like I'm more powerful than the food or the cravings that, we never know what's causing cravings. It could be parasites,
bacteria.
It could be gut bacteria.
Have you ever replaced your mealtime with a meditation?
No, but for me, I'm right now, you can't, in my opinion, you cannot make too many changes at once, because you're bound to fail. You're bound to self-sabotage. And when you make a promise to yourself, your higher self is watching, your subconscious is watching, people are watching you, and you need to know that you can trust yourself. And so right now I am trying to put my meditation practice before everything. I'm trying to wake up and meditate, and then meditate twice a day.
Okay, so then...
And that's my line in the sand of like the non-negotiable. And I'm noticing that I'm a higher vibration. I'm resonating differently, and I'm not nearly as drawn to low vibrational foods like processed foods. It's just naturally being magnetized to me. Like, you bought me a green juice. I have not wanted, I've had the thought about, let me go to Juice Crafters, let me go to Air One, let me go.
Do you want to drink this green juice on this thing? You want to show the people how to do it?
There's barely any left.
That's all right. There's some left. I'll get it for you. Let's show the people how to, because basically, even if you're not replacing your food with meditation,
it's just like,
even if you're not replacing food with meditation, you can replace a full meal with a juice, right?
But see, this is what I'm trying to tell you, that most people do not have the discipline that you have.
I don't think
you've been very disciplined with food.
I think if people do it once a day, like right now, just take a sip. There we go. Show the people. Does it taste good? It's like cold pressed juice with
I'm surprised it tastes so good.
Celery, whatever else.
It's from Cafe Gratitude in Venice. So
be grateful. It's the I am authentic, actually, if you want to let the people know. So, like, when I was first introduced to fasting, it was a group of men who were all sober. They were like bikers, some of those guys, the ex-felons, like convicts.
They were drinking green juice?
No, they committed to fasting, and instead of eating lunch, they chose to pray and meditate and that was these big, bald, ripped dudes who worked as tow truck drivers and construction guys and everything in the community that I was a part of with them. They told everybody, listen, like, this week, every lunch, instead of eating lunch, I want us all to know that we're in solidarity for this, and we're just gonna take that time, we're gonna go somewhere else, you're gonna split away from your coworkers, whatever, and you're gonna pray and meditate during your lunch. And that was the first time in a community I had ever been exposed to this as a spiritual practice. And that just kind of made sense to me, because it was like, okay, well, you're only doing one meal, you're skipping, you're replacing it with something, and you know that a bunch of other dudes are wherever they're at in their
It's a corporate
jobs.
fast.
Yeah, they're all doing
a
it
lot of
themselves.
churches, just so you guys know, a lot of churches do fasts.
Yeah, a lot of mosques do it in Ramadan, 40 days. A billion plus Muslims around the world during the time of Ramadan. This was during March this last year, so a couple months ago. Got 1 billion people every day not eating or drinking, full dry fast from sunup to sundown around the entire world. 1 billion Muslim people. Now, Ramadan also occurs during Lent, so you have Catholic people. Again, how many Catholics are there? About 1 billion. So that's like a quarter of the world's population in the month of March choosing to forego something
that they absolutely love.
And
it's supposed to be something they love.
And it's a form of abstinence. In the Islamic tradition, it's during the daylight hours. It also includes sexual intimacy, things like that. I mean, if you don't have a bunch of Muslim friends, or you're not exposed to Islam as a religion or a culture, I mean, there's 1 billion people around the world who do this, and it's a practice of discipline. It's like martial arts. But if you're not used to it, which is kind of what you were referring to, if you're not used to it, then it seems very foreign, very strange.
Well, it's not, I mean, self-knowledge avails us nothing. Like, I think we're all trying to feel better at all times. I think that's why we do the things we do. And if it's all frequency and vibration, and no one was handing me green juice, like, for the last several months, like, I wasn't drinking green juices. Like, I wasn't at a point where I, like, wanted to. And now my whole vibration is different. I'm being more restored to sanity and making more sane food choices, because I'm getting so much power from stillness, from meditation. And it's less effort. Like, I don't even have to do it. Like, you went and got this juice for me.
It was sitting right there. It floated over to you. It fluttered over to you. Fluttering green juice in Venice, California. But I do feel like if you're able to put yourself in a position mentally where by sipping this green juice, you are fighting the good fight of sobriety, not just for yourself, but for somebody else. Think about it in that context, right?
Look, I just gotta say that I've had to think about food in terms of, like, sobriety, because I'm overweight, and I'm trying to lose quite a bit of weight, and I've been trying to lose it for a while, and
You're not that overweight.
Instead, I've been gaining weight. And if your goal, no matter what size you are, is to lose weight,
you're not overweight. I mean, it's all you're not. There's, like, what is it, the BMI stuff, and there's healthy stuff. The point is, and I guess maybe I said this earlier, I didn't, eating, drinking is not about weight. It shouldn't be about weight. Dieting is completely different than fasting. And people can be, there's like very there's people who are not practicing fasting because of their health or their weight or their BMI or any of that. They're practicing fasting entirely, exclusively as a way to draw closer to their creator. And when that's the motive and there's no diet connected to it or a desire to lose 20 pounds or any of this stuff, I mean, if people want to lose weight, they can just go on Ozempic. Like, you get an over-the-counter thing and you hop on a pill and you're going to lose 40, 50 pounds.
You have to have a prescription for Ozempic, though.
That's fine. It's easy. If you have enough money, you can get it.
It's not that easy to get a prescription for Ozempic.
If you have enough money, you can easily lose weight. That's not what fasting is about. That's a very Hollywood sort of entanglement that we've come across. But there's an added benefit that your health, including weight, will be probably be happier with at the end of a fast. But none of these guys, again, back to the collective thing that I was a part of, none of these dudes are trying to like lose weight. They're not trying to, most of them are trying to gain weight and muscle. And the idea of just taking time out once out of every 3 meals, so one in the middle, to just set aside time to practice spirituality in a way that's real and authentic for them. That's what we're talking about. And even in a weird way, right? This is a type of spiritual practice where we're edifying an audience here. We're opening. We're being authentic. We're being transparent. There's spiritual nutrition even in just this activity that feeds us. It may not be like, eyes closed, like in a meditative state, although we can certainly do that if you like. But this is a spiritual practice in itself. And I hope that the motivation or the inspiration for making this video is felt by the audience. Like, whoever it is out there that needs to see this, I hope that you see this. The idea of sobriety being linked to what you eat and what you drink, that's not a drug or alcohol, but that there's still an element of sobriety in even food, and there's still an element of getting drunk with food, then there's people who need to hear this. And it's not about alcohol. It's not about weight loss. For a person who's an addict, it's not about weight loss. For the person who's an addict, it's about not being addicted. And if they're, there's some addicts that lose a ton of weight, and that's actually in some ways what keeps people doing the drug, whatever that drug of their choice is it helps them stay skinny or whatever. Like, there's so many entanglements there that I think we're gonna have to take a step back. It's interesting. We're not too far away from where I met Matthew, dude from Prince, the dude from Friends,
Matthew Perry.
And Matthew Perry was speaking to a all men's group of sober people wanting to get sober, and he was speaking to a group of close to 800 guys, 800, just massive, giant auditorium full of people. And I just saw this wild thing, clip from him recently, and he was really getting into the deeper spiritual stuff. And he said he got on his knees and prayed that if he could become a star, become like a movie star, he told God that he would never forget God, and he would use it to help people. And he asked God, he said, please make me a movie star. And this is in an interview, it's not something I'm making up. And 2 weeks later, he booked Friends. And 2 months later, after that, in the interview, he says he was in this huge mansion in Beverly Hills or Pacific Palisades, wherever. And he said he was so miserable. 2 months, only 2 months later. And he realized that being a star was not going to fix his problems. And he fell down on his knees and he said, God, like, forgive me. Almost literally saying, like, God, what have I done? Because becoming one of the world's most well-known television stars did not fix his problems. And, you know, he had issues, I'm sure, with multiple things: drugs, alcohol, food, all these things. I think being able to discipline yourself and learn a little bit about eating, eating, not drinking, but being content in whatever circumstance you're in. Some people don't eat because they literally can't afford food. I mean, that's a whole other level that should be compassionately considered. Like, there's people who either they steal, and then that way they'll just five finger out of Walmart and, you know, keep their head down, not hand a receipt over, just walk out a door or a liquor store or whatever. Some of those people are fasting because they don't want to have to steal and they don't know how to get food.
There's also like dollar menus for fast food, like McDonald's.
Not anymore.
And
barely.
Some people will, you know, try to save money by eating off the dollar menu, and it's like, who knows what's in that meat? It's not good.
Yeah, now we're opening up a whole thing around food deserts. Food. I was actually a part of a hackathon in downtown LA. There's a cool place. What's the place down in Santa Monica? It's the Earth Cafe.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an Earth Cafe in downtown LA. This is for all our Angelinos, where we've mentioned a couple little LA spots. But anyway, there's the LA Department of Water and Power has a beautiful building in downtown LA right next to Earth Cafe. And I was a part of a hackathon there, and I joined a team. They pair you with different teams who need programmers, engineers, or salespeople, marketers, whatever. And this startup company was trying to map Los Angeles around food availability. And they had all the data from the city. There's certain areas of Los Angeles classified as food deserts, food swamps. Food swamps are the worst. Food swamp is like one grocery store with healthy, fresh food every 5 miles or more. So 5 square miles, there's only 1 or 0 grocery stores that offer fresh food. And then you have food deserts, which are like 1 every 10 miles. And then you have like food oases, which is like places where there's just good, healthy food everywhere, grocery stores everywhere. Trader Joe's is notorious for only being based in certain zip codes with certain median incomes. So you have to be making enough money to even have access to a Trader Joe's, or you have to live in a place. So anyway, point is if you look at certain parts of South LA, there's not a grocery store for 5 miles. In South LA, 20 miles away from here, less than 20 miles away, 10 miles away from Venice, from this beautiful oasis where you've got like Erewhon and you've got Whole Foods and all this stuff. And you'll see fried chicken, you'll see liquor stores, you'll see delis, you'll see all these other options, burger joints, McDonald's for sure, but there's no place to get fresh food. So then there's people who, instead of, when they're aware that that food is not healthy for them, they will literally just forego eating. And then you've got people with eating disorders. Those people eat and then, they cause physiological stimuli to then get rid of the food from their systems. I mean, dude, fasting is in many ways a spiritual practice that cuts across all these different populations and these segments of humanity. Some of them are. It's an equalizer in some ways.
And what's interesting now is intermittent fasting has become so popular.
Huge. Yeah, doctors hate it. There's a lot of stuff that tries to say, don't intermittent fast. It's not healthy. Too many Americans are intermittently fasting. It's like, well, we live in a time of inflation and perceived inflation and financial hardship. People are intermittently fasting, if not entirely, but part of the reasoning behind it is they're saving themselves money. If people want to eat a healthy meal, it costs at least $25 to eat a full-on healthy meal today. So can you benefit your pocketbook and your spiritual mind, body, soul, spirit, holistic connection by just, praying or meditating instead of eating a, $25 sushi and juice lunch or whatever? I mean, dude, there's so many elements of this. And so it's a really pertinent subject, but I don't hear a lot of it. If you all go on YouTube right now, you try to search fasting conversations just like this, just being real about fasting. It's really hard to find good content. And I think that's another motivation for even doing this video as an offering, if you will, because we live in a super high information, rapid information, highly technological era, but people aren't really talking about this issue. You can go on technology fasts. Maybe you've tried to fast from social media and you want to go for 6 hours without looking at your phone. That's also fasting. Is it going to be easier for you to do that if you've had some practice fasting in other areas of your life? Sure. Is it going to be a complete correlation where, sometimes I use technology to actually stimulate my mind so I don't think about eating. Just being 100% real. I've played video games that have allowed me to fast for extended periods of time because I'm feeding my brain, I'm feeding my mind with something that is not like salt, seasoning, sugar, whatever. And there's something that's a whole scientific area of research I couldn't tell you much about, but how neurochemistry and things like that feed into our diet and eating and our self-perception, all these things. So I think all this to say is, what would you, as someone who's interested in this, because I think people can relate to you maybe more than me. I don't know who this guy is. I really like Polymath, and he's like whatever, he has this superpower. He kind of looks like the guy from Fantastic Four right now with the blue shirt. Don't I look like Reed Richards? That kind of funny. Anyway, what for you as someone who's interested in this, like, what would you invite people on this to journey with you on? Like, what's the first couple steps? You mentioned you're doing meditation. You're focusing your time and energy on quieting your mind, on centering yourself.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I think there's a few things that are coming to mind. First of all, look, most people know, like, it's good to eat vegetables, good to eat like stuff that's alive, that has like sunlight in it. But just because you know something to be true doesn't mean you can actually demonstrate it. And I did no flour, no sugar.
For how long?
The longest I did was 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah.
So a third of a year.
It worked really well for me.
What did you notice?
I lost weight. I lost at least 25 pounds in those 4 months.
And what about your mental?
My skin got better, I would say. I felt so much better. I had so much more energy. I felt so much more self-esteem because I had a boundary. Like, that's my food and that's not my food. And I knew it would work because, like, one time I lost 20 pounds in 3 weeks. And I felt amazing. And just because I have the secret formula, one of them,
what's the secret formula you're gonna tell us?
Was no flour, no sugar.
Okay.
That's a very powerful thing to do in terms of fasting is eliminate flour and sugar from your diet.
So artificial sugars, like added sugar, if sugar is an ingredient, you're into it?
No sugar,
what about
no flour.
Sugar and fruit.
I personally, when I do no flour, no sugar, I have a little bit of fruit in the morning. But other than that, I don't have fruit. And I don't really have things like grapes because they have too much sugar in them. So, but I started doing that last April. I did April, May, June, July, August. So I guess it was 5 months that I did it for, 4.5 months. And I felt amazing. And then I have not been able to do it since. And I've known about it. I've aspired to do it, but it hasn't stuck. So my thing is, sometimes we get quote unquote struck sober. Like I recently I had energy drinks removed, Monster energy drinks. And that's happened to me before. And this time I like when you get struck sober from flour and sugar or whatever it is.
Cigarettes or alcohol.
Cigarettes.
Right?
You don't want to, like, I don't ever want to tempt God again on that, because just because it felt easy, because I've done that before. Oh, I can always stop again. That was like 3 years ago. So it's not that easy to stop. So this time I'm not going to pick back up again. And I really haven't gotten into the swing of no flour, no sugar yet. But I feel like if I put my meditation practice first, I will make much better food choices. And I have like a chance. And, you know, even now, like I am starting to be hungry. And I'm going to like do writing about it. I'm going to like meditate maybe again to figure out, well, what is it that I'm quote unquote eating over? Like, what is it that I'm like, am I trying to numb or suppress down? And that's applied spirituality, where I'm so aware that I'm been hungry for like a while. Like I'm hungry, like, but I have this feeling that that the hunger will go away. The hunger will pass over me. And when I got off flour and sugar, last year, the first several days were rough. Like it was really hard. But once I got over the initial first week, like it became super easy. And it became what I wanted to do. Like it was really easy. And sometimes I would still want to quote unquote act out, but I would act out with like, oh, I'm going to have cheese. I'm going to have red meat. You know, it wasn't like I would want that quote unquote comfort food, but within the boundaries and the parameters of no flour, no sugar. Oh, I'm going to get myself a Diet Coke. I'm feeling like having some sugar, so I'm going to get myself a Diet Coke. I'm acting out. I'm having a Diet Coke, but I'm not putting sugar in my body. I'm not buying a candy bar. I'm not eating chips. I'm not eating bread.
So do you think that fasting is like a form of limit breaking limits?
It's boundaries. It's giving yourself boundaries and rules and bottom lines, and it's following those. And when you follow those and you start to get results and people start to be really drawn to you and inspired by you, and you start to, sometimes you piss people off and sometimes people join you. Like I had friends who were already pretty disciplined, like, okay, let's go to like Tender Greens and have salads and let's talk about this. And they're like, what can I fast? Because they wanted spiritual power. Some people really want spiritual power and they really want health and they really want mental acuity. And other people, they're chemicalizing when they find out you're doing something, and there's a temptation to want to attack you and dominate you. Because guess what? Like when you fast, like you're not as easily controllable because you're gaining more spiritual power. And so you can't be dominated as easily, and people don't like that. They want to dominate and control. And they want, if they're, they don't want to have to look at their own habit, their own relationship with food. They don't want to wonder and question, like, hey, do I need to get off sugar too? They're not even ready for that.
So that's a part of the boundary setting.
Well, but it's with yourself. And it's like weighing in, like what I found doing it the first time is like, the secret is you're weighing and measuring everything in your life. And you're having to put yourself first. And you're having to like really plan your food. And you can't really eat out as much or at all. Some people don't eat out at all for their first 90 days. Yeah, you have, it's very nice. It's like you have your little limits. Like you as a vegan have that where it's not even an option for you to eat meat.
Sure. Yeah,
and when you make those choices, like I'm an alkaline water drinker, or I'm going to have a green juice every day. And a character is, in acting we talk about, a character is what a character does.
So do you have to plan better then? Does this require logistical upgrades and setting yourself up for success?
It can. It can. But like for me, I made it really easy on myself. I would like sometimes I personally like to do the same thing every day. Like if I would have done it another several months, I might have started doing more meal prep. I might have started cooking more at home. I might have, done things a little differently, but it's like I needed to like build my sea legs and not be wobbling. And I needed to know what I was capable of. And like, you can't make too many changes too fast. Like I made the mistake while I was doing no flour, no sugar. I had a friend say, oh, you should get off caffeine as well. And I was like, okay. And that actually really messed me up because it made me, getting off the caffeine was so hard that it made me actually like start eating, flour and sugar. And that offsets a craving. That's the thing, is sugar is actually more addictive than cocaine. And it causes so much inflammation in the body. So these things are very addictive, and it sets off a phenomenon of craving if you have it. And so that's what happened to me, is to try to do the caffeine. Oh, let me have some bread. And then all of a sudden I'm not doing the caffeine and I'm not doing the flour and the sugar either. And if I could do that over again, I wouldn't have tried to give up the caffeine. Right now I'm in a great position because I am drinking caffeine, but it's just coffee. Like I'm just drinking coffee, and like I never really liked coffee. Like I don't like the taste that much, frankly. Sometimes I do, but it's not my favorite. And I don't drink energy drinks anymore. And so I feel like I'm in a much better position to do the no flour, no sugar. But even having this green drink, it's like, and the thing is, when I did no flour, no sugar, I had to make a creative choice. It's just like branding. Like you have to make a creative choice and like stick with it. And like I knew, wait a second, I'm doing no flour, no sugar. That means I'm eating meat, and some people think meat's really bad for you. That means I'm eating cheese. Some people think dairy is really bad for you. That means I'm able to have milk if I want it, or cottage cheese if I want it. Some people say dairy is really bad for you. One thing I know that is not bad for you is green drinks. I can't have as much fruit as I want. I can only have fruit in the morning because it has sugar in it. So
still here.
I still thought, like, wait, shouldn't I be doing like some liquid fast and not be eating meat? Isn't meat bad for me? And I had to just say, I need to reassess that in like a year or two from now. Like, I need to just be someone who doesn't eat flour and sugar and then reassess. But I don't want to overcomplicate this.
Yeah.
So that's what I did. I made a choice and I stuck with it and I didn't try to deviate. And in branding, you have to do the same thing. Like with this podcast, I can't keep changing the logo. I can't keep changing, the name of the podcast or the design. You make a choice and you stick with it.
So how does fasting impact your polymath identity? Will it make you a better polymath? You mentioned boundaries, limitations being broken, etc. So are polymaths, as just by definition, are they generally people who are limit breakers and who overcome beliefs saying I can't do this, or other people say I can't do this, and that fasting is actually natural to a polymath?
Well, polymaths are people that use expertise in multiple fields to solve problems. So if you have a problem with disease in your body and inflammation in your body, and you want to create health in your body, and you want to look great because you are on camera or you're an actor, or like you just want, you just like people, there is such a thing as more attractive people get paid more, they get hired more. So, there are reasons to look better, right? So if you're a polymath, you can do multiple, the fasting covers a lot of ground. It also does give you more spiritual power to fast and become more healthy and look younger and all those things.
Some musical artists will say, I'm telling all the producers, all the engineers.
Like Kanye West.
That's one of them. There's been others at times, It's not all like sex, drugs, rock and roll. Some people are like, we're going to fast until this thing gets made and until it gets released. And not just in music, there's film, there's authors, there's mathematicians, there's people who like said, okay, I'm not gonna do something until this thing is done.
Religious people, fasting. Like I have friends who are like, oh, so and so's in the hospital, I'm gonna start a fast.
Okay, well,
I'm fasting for them to get out of the hospital.
But then I guess there's also so that's one element. But there's also professionally people, athletes. I mean, we haven't talked about athletes this whole time. Athletes are literally, when they're in training season, actors, actresses, whatever, when athletes, these big celebrity entertainers, when they're in training season, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson doesn't get to have cheat days when he's doing his thing. Neither does evidently people who are in superhero movies or people who are in the Olympics. I mean, they're completely committed. So in a weird way, fasting is really just an inward form of committing to an outward goal or an outward activity. But it's an inside job, fasting is. Because you have the power to stop that hand from reaching in and grabbing, we were talking about a candy bar or whatever, and then taking a bite and then chewing it. I mean, those are all physical activities, but it has started at some point with I'll just do it, or I'm not strong enough, or whatever. So it's a really mind-body, it's like the perfect landscape for understanding mind-body relationship. But yeah, I mean, it's the Paris Olympics right now. It's 2024 Olympics in Paris. They've got people who are getting ready to go and do everything from rowing to playing like sports that everybody knows, but those people they're not going out and living crazy party lives. They're not eating whatever they want, whenever they want. They have trainers, they have coaches. So maybe the last thing as we kind of wrap this up, maybe you want to give a call to action to people. Maybe you're in the role of a student, maybe you're in the role of a coach, maybe you're in the role of a trainer, or maybe you're in the role of someone being trained. What would you tell the audience? What's your call to action for people who have stuck around this long, and what would you Are you a coach? Are you a trainer? Are you in the process? Are you looking for a coach or a trainer? Is there someone you're wanting to help you with this process? How would you do it, and how would you recommend for others to?
For fasting?
Yeah, sure. Have you had coaches and trainers in this stuff before?
Yeah, I have.
Did it help?
It has helped. It has helped, but the thing is, like, I do think that, I just want to talk about this idea of like being like hypnotized or controlled or mesmerized, and that goes back to our whole conversation about like being quote unquote drunk on food or drunk on sugar or drunk on flour or drunk on meat or whatever, drunk on dairy, like where you're like not you're like you're not super clear. You're more prone to like the power of suggestion. And if you don't have a plan, you're going to plan to fail. So if you
Or if you fail to plan?
if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you have to like I believe that you have to have a really clear intention. And you can't just keep saying, I'm so fat or I'm so whatever it is. Like, you have to talk in the affirmative and kind of know that it's already done. Like I am well, I am healthy, I am powerful, and I am mindful. And when you do that, it sets into a train of motion, train of circumstances is set into motion. And you just get to become a witness. And that's what happened to me. Like, I believe that because it's not having something in theory is not enough. So I became more spiritually awoken through the commitment to the meditation, which only came because it was like night and day. I like just doing it first thing in the morning and having more solitude where I was like not waking up in like the same location. If you want to make part of the reason people go on vacations is because if you want to make a new habit, you have to go into a new environment. When you change up your routine and you change up your schedule, you're able to build new neural pathways. So I switched up my routine and I didn't have to like get across town in the morning. So I was able to like sit in solitude by the beach and meditate. And then all of a sudden, a lot of my problems, like how am I going to get back on no flour, no sugar? How am I going to like lose this weight? How am I going to like feel sharper and smarter and like be more productive? And how am I going to like improve my finances and all these different goals that I have? They all those problems started to dissolve and I got hope. And then now I'm on a roll and like, I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? This green juice is pretty good. And like, oh yeah, I used to drink these all the time. And, I'm just naturally attracted to more healthy things. Like I like water. Like right now, I don't want a Diet Coke. Like I did have a lot of Diet Coke already today, but like, I don't want a Diet Coke. Like that sounds gross, because my palate has been linked now with this green juice. And now I'm like we need more sanity. It's not enough to just be like
Well, and also like you mentioned this mesmerism, hypnotism thing. I mean, don't we have advertising like just barraging us all the time with like drink a Coke, like Pepsi, like they use athletes, they use celebrities. What's weird is those brands use people who are already disciplined and very well trained in not having those things and being able to not have those things, but they use those same people to then advertise the irresistible icy cold drink of sip from a glass bottle of a Pepsi or a Coke to millions and millions of other people on earth. And that's like it's not right. If those people don't usually drink those things because they're trying to be the best they can be, but they're being paid to make a bunch of other people around the world think that they love those products, that's bizarre. But like you just said, like that's not right. Like, and I feel like in a weird way, right? When the world seems so completely out of control and everything seems insane, fasting is one thing that you can do to bring some sense of sanity or structure something back to your life.
Yeah, and to fight back. I mean, Gandhi was arrested, put in jail for fasting because you do gain spiritual power, and
getting other
people can feel it. People can feel it. And like the Bible says, sometimes the only thing that move the heart of God are prayer and fasting. So even in like Vedas, which is Hinduism, there's this notion of almost like cause and effect. Like if you, like a divine transaction. So if you want something like more money or more health, or you want like a relationship to work, what are you willing to give up? So sometimes it's like, oh, you like your sleep, you need to get up before sunrise and do these sun salutations at sunrise with the intention of like that financial health or that healthy relationship or whatever it is, that better job that you want. And so that's the teaching. That's like one of the teachings
like
of the Vedas.
That's like the Tao, Buddhism. All faiths have some form of discipline and reward, right? Cause and effect. So okay, so let's then wrap it up for the people. Why don't you give a call to action, or do you want to invite these people to check in, how they're doing, do this, go for this, I'm going to do this, maybe just want to make a declaration on what you yourself are going to do, let everybody else kind of decide on their own. But I feel like that's part of this is all accountability, right? This is literally an accountability session that's being, shared with people. But I think that these types of authentic moments, like in discussions, are helpful. Like it's helpful to know that people are out there wanting to be better or wanting to be free from addiction, free from whatever. So
the call to action is we want to hear success stories of like how intermittent fasting or doing like a juice cleanse or doing like a special diet or a special meal plan, how has it helped your life? Like how has it made you more magnetic? How has it opened doors? Like I was writing screenplays when I went vegan. Like I was like all of a sudden just popping off. Like when I gave up flour and sugar, I made all this progress on not one but two different films. Like, and that was like the thing that I was the most passionate about, and a music video. And that was from no flour, no sugar. And people that I really looked up to were all of a sudden looking up to me because they wanted, like a lot of people in LA are artists and entertainers and authors, and they want the secret X factor. They want to use whatever they can. Like
it's a very LA conversation we're having, like veganism and fasting and spirituality and all these things.
Yeah, but LA there's so many professionals here, right?
There's nothing wrong with it. I think
everyone is becoming like now.
That's right.
Like when I lived in New York in 2013, and I couldn't find any juice bars. Like there was one in Brooklyn that we would go to and order from, but like in Manhattan, it was like really hard to find juice bars.
I mean Starbucks though.
So like the health conversation and the health consciousness has really expanded, but you just have to be careful because there's a lot of misinformation. Like, oh, get this green tea flavored this, and you're like, this is health food. No, it's like, is it alive? Is the food have sunlight in it? Is it alive? Like that's the processed food can really get you. So that's definitely something to eliminate. But that's and then also just, yeah, like what have you gotten out of your fasts? Like, how has it helped you become more polymath, like more able to solve more problems? I know for me, I was so much more lucid and clear, and so much more in the flow state, and but then it's like you remember that, but you can't always get back to it. So how do you get back if you backslide? How do you get back? And how do you not take it to way too much to the extreme too? It's like, how do you find the balance in it? So
I'll check in with people at some point, and thanks. It was great time.
thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you. See ya.
And do you have anything that you want to challenge them with?
I mean, I have a lot. You can search some of my stuff. Maybe give a link to the book or whatever. But
What is the book called?
it's called Wisdom and Might. Training the Daniels of Hollywood.
But what about the one about fasting?
I mean, I have a whole other one that's under a pseudonym.
What's that one called?
I'm not gonna say it. If people really want that one, you have to direct message. You have to ask for it, and I'll find a way to get it to you. But yeah, it's I mean, it's very, what's the word? Not just counterculture. It's very fasting strategically is very subversive, in a good way. Like you can use fasting to subvert massive systems of oppression and massive strongholds over your own mind,
including in your own mind and body. Yeah, I had a roommate from Singapore in college, and she would always fast because she knew, even at 18.
Was she Muslim?
She was from, I don't know. I mean, she's from Singapore. What's the usual
there's Muslim
religion there? But yeah, she would always fast because she knew that it like reset the system. Like she knew it created health. So she would do like fasts or juice fasts, and so a lot of other countries are more knowledgeable about it than America. But how has it helped you? Has it helped improve your health, your skin, your mind, your efficiency?
I'll just say, yeah, what you were. I won't answer that directly, but I will say, let's all do the best we can to be the best we can to do good in this world, and then let's compare notes on a future thing. Love to come back.
Okay.
And thanks again. Like, I just give words of encouragement to everybody, to you as well. I mean, I think this is they say like liquid courage is alcohol, right? Like liquid fasting is more like liquid hope, right? You're hoping for something better, and you're wanting to reach something you haven't reached, some out of reach thing.
That.
So fasting is a path, it's a shortcut or whatever. It's an access point for the things that you're really hoping for, like you mentioned, like, and maybe your friend from Singapore, these other people. So if we treat it that way, it's a very sacred, it's like a sacred rod for like some hike, some mystical hike, some journey up a mountain, where this is your staff, this is your thing that will help you. Like when you're actually leaning on the staff, your magic wand. Not a wand. I mean, it's a staff. Well, you're on a hike. I don't need a wand to go on a hike, but but when you're feeling tired, you kind of do lean on that staff, and you're thinking like, oh, I can get to the top of the mountain. I want to see the view. I want to have the feeling of victory over this challenge. I think fasting is a beautiful rod. It's a beautiful stick, like, and so anyway, that being said, I feel like that's my word, is like, use this as a tool to get to the top of the mountain you're trying to get to. And don't give up, don't get frustrated, don't start yelling at your hiking party, don't stop your hike and just start eating a bunch of picnic food. Like, if you're on a hike up a mountain to get to the other side, like, you let fasting as a spiritual practice be a staff, an actual tool for you to get to the top. I love that. If you want to make a breakthrough, like, sure, it can help
motivate you to. And I can say this: I'm a singer. Whenever I fast, I sing way better. My spiritual connection is much bigger, and then I eat or drink something after the performance.
Do you believe that those things are possible, those dreams, hopes, aspirations you have? And then if you do, is this a way for you to get there faster? I mean, it's literally called fasting. Fast.
Oh.
You're trying to get there faster. You're trying to get to the top of the mountain faster.
Yeah.
So if you believe that, some of you may not believe that at all. I'm surprised you're still listening after an hour. But if you want to get there faster, then see you on the fast track.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.